Before the next episode of X Job Downloaded starts, I have a big favour to ask. If you've enjoyed any of our episodes so far, please can you click on the follow button on your platform. I'm on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon and YouTube. It costs nothing to follow, but makes a real difference to me as a podcast producer. Thank you. This interview is being tape recorded. My name is Paul Maleary and this is X Job Downloaded. And today I'm going to interview Gary Jackets. Now, Gary is a former police officer. He's a comedian. He's now gone back to a form of law enforcement. He runs the comedy club down in Chalkwell, all the different things that he's doing. And I think he's going to be a great guest today. So welcome to the podcast.
Morning, sir.
How are you?
And right, so before we go any further, I'm terrible. If I meet one of my old school teachers, I still call them sir. And when I meet someone from the job that was had pips or more than stripes, I still call them sir.
No, please don't, because I tell you what, I had that the other day in Tesco's, and I was like, listen, I haven't been anybody's boss for a very, very long time.
No, I mean, once you get to know them, it's always boss or gov, isn't it? It's not sir.
Yeah. But it's, oh my God. Gary, thank you for seeing me today. But where did it all begin for Gary Jackets? What did you do before, and what was the inspiration to join the old bill?
Right. So first things first. I'm not a comedian. Right. Let's get that right. I do MCing occasionally, but I'm definitely not a comedian.
Well, I think you're funny.
I think I'm funny. My missus doesn't like my jokes. She says I'm not funny. They're repetitive and boring, and they're usually someone else's. Right. Well, where do we start? I left school in 84? Yeah, 83, 84. And like most people in Southend, the big employee in the town, if you weren't in the a manual job, was what was called the Joint Credit Card Company.
Oh yeah, Access.
So Access basically, or MasterCard. Everyone of a certain age worked in the banking world in Southend, and ironically, quite a few old people that ended up being in the old bill. You might even know them. Graham Dye.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I met him there or as a barman at 06. Graham Moore.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They're all from that sort of era. I must admit, it was great fun, but I didn't enjoy it. I ended up getting a part-time job in a pub in Southend called the Bell. It was I don't know how well you know Southend.
Fairly.
It's on the corner of Prince Avenue. I think it's Toby Carvery now, but it was a bear pit. It was an absolute bear pit. There was two bars. There was a public bar and a saloon bar, and you daren't walk in the saloon bar. And it was one of those places where the door opened and 20 people would turn around and look at you. And it was run by a guy called George, and obviously his wife's nickname was the Dragon. And one of my very first experiences was I'll never forget it. It was a Boxing Day, and there was a barroom brawl, but it was a proper cowboy western, chairs flying backwards and forwards. It was brilliant. So yeah, and from there I decided to leave the banking world, and I got a job as a trainee assistant manager in what was the Silver Jubilee in Eastwood. I think it's a Miller and Carter now.
Right.
And I just worked my way up, and before I knew it, I was running. And I'm going to throw some names at you. Some people in the policing world are going to know. I ended up running Churchill's in Leigh-on-Sea, which then became Bellini's, and then I think it's now called the Oakley. And that's when I first came across a gentleman by the name of Paul Bates.
Oh, that's it. We're stopping the interview now. I can't remember how many times he got banned. Yeah, I can imagine.
I think the best one was the Trifle and Blancmange fight in the middle of a buffet.
Him and Andy Fuchsia together, I'll tell you what a pair of nightmares they are.
Yeah, so that's when I first came across them. I then I worked, I ran a few places in Southend, and then I ended up working for a company based in Romford, and I was in charge of all their bar operations, and that's where I had the very small involvement in the Tony Tucker story.
Do you know, I saw your name the other day on a social media feed, and somebody has got hold of the statement that you made, because we're right on the anniversary of the murder, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
18 years ago. No, 28 years ago.
That's more. Yeah.
28 years ago. Must be something like that. Yeah. And your statement was put into a feed, and it drives me mad, these conspiracy theorists who read too much into what they don't know. Haven't got a clue.
Honestly, it's never ending. I probably get, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 emails, phone calls, messages a year from production companies asking for me to tell them things. Well, mate, I don't. All I did was take a restaurant booking.
You took a restaurant booking the night before the night before they got murdered, or the night they got murdered. You took a restaurant booking.
Yeah. So the company owned a chain of nightclubs and a chain of bars. I ran the chain of bars stroke restaurants, and my office and I was based at the one in Romford, which was around the corner from Hollywood's, where Tony Tucker's firm run the doors. So quite often they'd come into my restaurant before the club opened and have dinner, and that was it. So they'd ring me up. Tony would ring up and say, I'll go out, can I have a table for 4, please? And that'd be it. And I think it was a couple of nights before the incident, he rang me up, booked a table, and then the next day he rang up again, and I think he extended the booking. The night of the incident, I was in London watching Tim Vine, comedy show.
Yeah.
And I remember it because it had been snowing, and I came out of the show, and someone rang me and said, "Did you hear what happened yesterday?" I said, "No, what happened yesterday?" And that's when someone told me, and that was it. Police came down, took a statement. I never heard a single thing since, except for I get all these random people ask me to do TV interviews. I'm like, well, what do you want me to tell you? I can tell you in 5 seconds. And then, as you say, someone the other day was accusing me of being in collusion with the police, fabricating a statement.
But they're deluded. Mate, there are former police officers that are trying to reinvestigate this, and one of them has gone on record as saying that my wife, who works for us, for X Job, that my wife works for a person who used to handle somebody as an informant. My missus has only worked for us. She worked at Stansted Airport before that. And then they start saying, "Oh yeah, well, of course, I said that we handled Darren Nichols in our office." Well, Darren Nichols at that time, informants were handled by people within the office. That's all I said. All of a sudden, he's my best mate. And the classic one is that I said that I'd joined the army, or that I'd been in the army. I've never, ever said I've been in the army. And there's a chap called Bernard O'Mahony who features in all of these. I've spoken to him twice in my entire life on the phone, and that's since I've done the recent film, Blood and Betrayal. That's the only time. I've never met him. But all of a sudden, he's my best buddy, and I'm like, I'll be honest with you, Gary, I'm getting to a point where I've got legal advice now, because if it carries on, I'm just going to put a letter into them and tell them to stop, and I hope they're listening to this, because it does drive you mad, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, it couldn't be further.
I'm amazed how obsessed some people are by it.
But people who have got no idea whatsoever what they're talking about. They had nothing to do with any of it at the time. The other one was that I said that I'd been involved in the investigation. No, I was investigated because when Dave Bright carried out his investigation in Braintree, everybody that served at Braintree Police Station was investigated because of the alleged corruption that was taking place there with police officers. But nobody ever got found guilty of any discipline offences or, more importantly, any criminal charges. Mm-hmm. Yet they'll go down the old Bill bent. And I'm going to rant a little bit more. The police officer that's trying to do this duplicitous investigation has got 2 members of staff that work for him. One was sacked from the police for selling police equipment, and the other one left the police because he was fiddling his timesheet. And he's the bloke who's been giving out everybody's telephone numbers. I know that mates of mine have had phone calls on the back of the information that he's provided to other people.
I know who you're talking about as well.
Yeah.
I worked with him.
Yeah. Honestly, mate. No names, no pack drills, but hopefully they'll pick up the vibes out of this. So that fateful night, you've seen Tim Vine, the brilliant Tim Vine, Jeremy's brother, and he is hilarious, I've got to say. His one-liners are absolutely superb. And then you discover that these 3 Herberts have been murdered in the back of a Range Rover.
Yeah. There we go.
And that's it.
That is it.
So after you've done that and you've made your statement, you decide to join the police. Oh, no, you've done other things in the industry.
Well, no, I mean, a lot of people in the leisure industry don't stay in places that long, to be quite honest. And then I got headhunted by one of the recruitment agencies to join a company called Regents Inn PLC. And honestly, if I was to pick 2 things in my life that I'd want to do, it would be to run a live music and comedy venue. And I became the general manager of Jongleurs.
Did you?
And Dingwalls in Camden.
Wow.
Exactly. Wow.
I used to go to Dingwalls. I've been to Jongleurs as well.
Yeah. So comedy and music, 2 of my loves. So I got to meet some very strange people and some amazing people and just some real random things. You know, I walk out the front door of my venue at 3 o'clock in the morning after everyone's gone home, and oh God, blimey! So I can't remember which one of them it was now. It was one of the Gallagher brothers and Paul Weller rolling around the floor, shit-faced drunk. They're best mates, but they're rolling around the floor, hugging each other. You know, when someone's so drunk, I love you, man. I wish in those days we had camera phones. Yeah, I got to see some great bands, got to meet some amazing people in the comedy world. And off the back of that, a friend of mine, Colin Dench, back in 1984, he started, was it 84? No, sorry, 1986, he started the Joker Comedy Club in Southend. It was in the basement of the Maritime, of the Cliffs Pavilion.
Yes.
And back in those days, it was probably one of the very, very few places that was open past 11 o'clock at night. And probably one of only, I don't know, half a dozen alternative stand-up comedy clubs outside of central London or Manchester. The lineup for the first show was Lee Evans' compere, a juggler called Steve Rawlings, who's still about, Bob Mills, again, who's still about.
Yeah.
I still see Bob quite a lot. He lives in just down the road from me, and bizarrely, I own a house in northern Cyprus, and so does he, just down the road. So the lineup was Lee Evans, Bob Mills, Steve Rawlings, the juggler, and Frank Skinner.
Wow.
And back in those days, comedy was really raw. You know, heckling was the in thing.
Yep.
And it was like a bear pit. In if you read Bill Bailey's autobiography, it mentions it quite a bit, and it was Bill Bailey's first ever appearance as a solo act. He used to be in a double act called the Rubber Bishops. But on this particular night, the other bishop didn't turn up. So Colin made him go on stage and do it on his own. And now he's a megastar.
Never look back.
Yeah, but nicely, whenever he plays the Cliff Pavilion, the big room upstairs, he still mentions the Joker Club.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, I knew Colin already. After a few years, he was getting fed up of doing the shows. I used to run it with a guy called Martin Treneman. You probably don't recognise Martin's name, but he's one of the characters in The In-Betweeners.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he plays one of the dads of one of the boys. And he's also got a really good a show on, I think it's on Welsh TV, where he plays a copper. And he's always on TV adverts. He's done loads of things. But so him and Colin used to run the Joker Club. Colin was getting fed up with it because he was doing some other bits and pieces. And so I took it off him.
Wow.
So I've been running shows we stayed at the Cliff Pavilion until about 2000 and I think it was about 2010. And then we moved it to the Chalkwell Park rooms. So it's been going, 38 years now, 37 years.
Fantastic.
You name an act in this country, I'd struggle to find someone who hasn't played there.
Oh, you got Phil Jupitus lives up the road from you, doesn't he? He's a...
Well, he used to.
Oh, right.
Now he's not there anymore. But quite a few acts live in and around Southend purely because it's just so expensive in London now.
And, of course, you've got Richard Osman who lives in your neck of the woods, or he used to live in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he still does.
Another funny man who's a great author. He's written some really good murder books. I don't know where they get their inspiration from for these murder books, but yeah, he's another funny guy. Huge.
Yeah, so that was started my world in comedy, and there's not many people that I've not worked with now. It does get frustrating sometimes because you see them going up the career path, and I'm at the bottom somewhere, and then they go up and up and up, and trying to get them back.
But you got Lee Hurst there, haven't you, in the new year?
One of the funniest things I've ever seen him do was he lives in East London, spitting distance away from Canary Wharf, and the night of the Canary Wharf bombings,
96.
I had a show.
Right.
I can't remember what year that was now. But anyway, his show that night at my venue was all about that day's bombing. The whole 40 minutes, just like that.
Wow.
Very clever man.
I mean, there are, and I went to the Comedy Store and I saw Jack D. In fact, there was Jack D, Joe Brand, and Lee Evans, who's another Essex boy, and he's a Billericay.
Yeah.
And there'd been a shooting in Colchester where a guy had gone into a gun shop, and I knew both parties. I know the guy that actually shot the robber is a really good friend of mine, and I knew the robber because of policing. And he did like 5 minutes of telling jokes about how stupid is it to walk into a gun shop and do a robbery. But yeah, Joe Brand as well. I'm sure the Comedy Store still have the big names there.
Yeah, they do. And sometimes they just appear. They'll go there as a customer, and Don Ward, the owner, will get them on stage. But yeah, no, it happens quite a lot.
I was saying earlier on, we've seen Ian Moore there a few times. Who's another good murder author, and he's into the mod stuff. And yeah, we've seen him at the Comedy Store. I haven't been there for a while. I'll have to come down to Chalkwell though.
Well, have you heard of an act called Terry Alderton?
Yes.
Okay, well, Terry, his very first performance on a stage of any description was for us, and we've become good buddies now. and he's going to have a go at me when I tell you I can't remember what year it was, but it's a good, I don't know, 20, 25 years, maybe longer, years ago. And yeah, we've stayed friends ever since because we're both Southend United fans. We go to football together. And he's headlining my Christmas show this Sunday.
Right. We'll get something out in a minute. I'll do a separate piece, and we'll say that you've got a show this Sunday.
Oh, bless you. He's always a crowd pleaser, but he holds the record for getting the most standing ovations at the Comedy Store.
Oh, really?
He's just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. And he does this bit where he turns his back on the audience, and so he faces the wall, and a different voice in his head starts telling the gags, and he did that as a one-off. And Eddie Izzard was in the audience, and Eddie Izzard said to him, "You need to elaborate on that and do that more. That's really good." And now it's the main part of his act. And there is not many acts in this country where other comedians will stop and watch.
Right.
And if you were to ask 100 comedians who is their favourite comedian and who is the hardest person to follow, they will say Terry.
Really?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely bonkers.
How did that? So you go on and join the police service. Did you carry on your comedian stuff and doing your commentary?
I'm massively. You've probably seen that I'm massively into running.
I
don't know why I fit all this stuff in. To be quite honest.
No, I don't.
And
not just running. I just want to qualify that it's not just running, is it? It's ultra marathons through deserts. I mean,
yeah.
I'm knackered just looking at your Facebook feed.
Before we did this chat, I was doing one this morning with some race organisers. I'm doing hopefully a project in Namibia in Africa in November. It's 160 miles, I think, across the Namibian desert. But it's the temperature is I'm old school, so I work in hundreds. It's about 115, 120 degrees.
Oh my God.
Over 5 days. So anyway, so that's sort of one of the bits how I got into policing. I used to run for Benfleet Running Club, and I used to run and train with a girl called Kirsty Snellgrove.
Yes, I remember Kirsty. Yes, I do. Bless her.
Yeah, bless her. And I told her that I'd always shown an interest in doing policing. Ironically, when I was working in London, I decided to go to an open day at New Scotland Yard, and I went to this recruitment day, and halfway through the recruitment day there was a bomb scare and we had to evacuate the building, and I never went back. But I told Kirsty about my idea about joining the police, and I was bored of doing the leisure industry, and she sort of got me involved. Before I knew it, I joined. But this is how bad is this? So at the time, Essex Police weren't recruiting, so I applied to BTP. So I rang them up, said, "Yeah, I want to join the bill." So they said, "Okay, well, we'll send you an application pack." So it came in the post. And I spent ages filling it out, with all these long-winded questions. Took me weeks and weeks and weeks to fill it all out. Sent it back. Letter in the post. "Dear Mr. Jackets, thank you for your application." And this is their favourite strap line. "Due to the high number of applications, it will be, 8 weeks before you hear from us again." And that was it. 3 weeks later, this massive, great big package came in the post. "Oh, what is it?" I opened it up. It's my joining instructions.
No.
And I'm thinking, nah. So I got on the blower. And I said, "Hello." I said, "My name's Gary Jackets. I've applied to join." I think you made a bit of a faux pas, a bit of a mistake here. So why is that, sir? Well, I've filled out the application form, and that's it. I've not done any. I've done nothing else. That is it. Hold on a minute. So she's gone away. She's gone ages. No, it's definitely right. No, I can assure you it's not. Right. I should have just turned up, shouldn't I?
Yeah. How fun is that?
And so she went away, and she come back. She went, "Oh, I'm so sorry, dear. That's not for you, is it?"
It's someone else sitting there getting a letter saying, "Oh, you got 8 weeks to wait."
It gets worse. So, so she spent ages apologising, and then about 4 weeks later, I got a letter saying, "Congratulations, you've passed the initial paper sift." But due to the high number of applicants, it'll be approximately 8 weeks before you hear from us again. And then I did some sort of mini telephone interview thing. And then I got a letter in the post saying, right, you've got to go to Coventry and do an assessment day. Sent me the train tickets, went to Coventry, did the assessment day. That was it. 2 weeks later, letter in the post. Dear Mr. Jackets, as you failed to attend the assessment day...
No!
I'm like, what do you mean? No, honestly, I was there. I was definitely there. I can assure you I was there. I can describe the building. I was there. She went away. It was the same woman. She went, hold on a minute, dear. And she come back. She went, oh, I'm so sorry. You did, didn't you? Oh, and I'm not supposed to tell you this over the phone, but you passed it.
Oh, brilliant.
So alarm bells are starting to ring. So, and then Essex Police opened the recruitment again, and I just transferred the stuff across to Essex Police. And then it all went tits up from there.
And what year was that?
Sorry?
What year was that?
2002. Yeah, I think it was 2002. And obviously I was a bit wary about, obviously, you know, you have to be careful about what you do outside the job.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to whoever, well, it's PSD, whoever it is, and I had to be a bit creative about how much involvement I had in the comedy. And I sort of took a bit of a back seat, and other people did all the work, and I just booked the acts.
Right.
And you know, my diary, I've got the phone numbers and email addresses of probably every act in the planet. So
don't lose it.
Yeah. And this is another funny, going back to Paul Bates. So all through my life, ever since then, I've known Paul and love him to death. He only lives just down the road from he lives down the road from my kids. I was at training school at Chelmsford in uniform, and I was in the canteen. I'd only been there about, I don't know, a couple of weeks, I think. And I've seen Batesy. Now, Batesy doesn't know. As far as Batesy's concerned, I'm still a publican. And he's in the queue at the canteen with his little tray. And I've literally shot up, got a tray, pushed my way to the queue, stood right behind him, right up his backside, and just kicked his heels. He's turned round. Honestly, you've never seen anyone shit themselves so much in their life. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, because Batesy's a Colchester boy, you can't believe that he actually went to Colchester Royal Grammar.
So he lives just down the road from my kids. And I went on his boat last year. I think it was last year or the year before. Him and his sister have got a nice little business. Yeah.
Seal watching. Discovery Seals, they're called, aren't they?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Captain Bates,
yeah.
So yeah, and what did I do in the policing world? I started off at Shoebury.
Jeff Appleby, was he there?
Yeah, I love Jeff. He was brilliant. He was my governor. And I've stayed in touch with a few people that are still there. Ian Hughes.
Yeah.
He's doing well for himself now. He was my sergeant. It's some good fun at Shoebury. Yeah. Really good.
Yeah, I was in a band with Jeff, so he's just he's one of life's gentlemen. He really is.
Yeah.
Why did you conclude your service early? What was the motivator?
I'm a bit of an entrepreneur. I just wanted my own business.
Yeah.
And yeah, I say I'd done everything in the pub game, from unblocking toilets to running multi-million-pound businesses. And I just, I made a lot of money for a lot of other people.
A lot of other people, yeah.
I've probably run, I don't know, 4 of the most successful restaurants, pubs in Essex, but for other people.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to take on a couple of pubs, and one of them I turned into an absolute monster, a colossal machine. So much so it affected I wouldn't say my mental health. It didn't do me any favours. But yeah, I mean, it was literally, you think policing's long hours. You're running a pub and a restaurant. It's even when you're not there, you're there.
Yeah, of course you are. The hospitality world is brutal.
Yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. COVID probably did me a favour, to be quite honest. So I took the pubs on in, I don't remember when it was now, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. One of them was in a little village in Hertfordshire called Walken, a sleepy, lovely little village. I had a pub and a Chinese restaurant that was a pub. We took on the pub. It had a garden the size of 3 football pitches. I bought the land behind the pub and made it 6 football pitches. And then we built this giant inflatable dome that held 300 people. And this little sleepy village pub went from being a sleepy village pub. We held a wake for a Met police officer in the back garden, and we estimate there was 800 people there.
My word.
We had 1,500 in for World Cup matches. I had a rock concert. You name it, we did it. Outdoor cinema. One of the locals said to me, he said, build it and they will come. And he said, I hate you. He said, my wallet is empty and my waistline has grown. Once a year, we used to put on this music festival called Magna Fest, and the police had to come and do crowd control in the streets because the roads are blocked. I turned it into an absolute monster. But at the end of it, I was physically and mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
And then COVID came along, and honestly, so the whole village used to come to the pub on a Friday after work, and it was although it was only 5 or 6 miles from Stevenage, it was in the middle of nowhere. A lot of farmers, agricultural people lived in the village. You'd have 8 tractors in the car park at 5 o'clock on a Friday. The whole village used to come to the pub. It was rammed. Boris Johnson came on TV at 5 o'clock and said, he didn't say, I'm shutting pubs. He just said, I recommend you don't go to a pub. I went from having 150 people in the bar at 5 o'clock to having 4 people in there at 5 past. Mm-hmm. Literally. Business was buggered. A brewery wanted to buy them back off me. So I said, thank you very much. Took a while for the sale to go through. So every week we were hemorrhaging money because although we had a government bailout, we still had to pay gas, electricity, water.
Of course.
Still had to, the staff were furloughed, but I still had to pay their pensions, their national insurance. So every week I'm going £200, £300, £200, and with nothing coming in.
No.
Obviously, comedy shut overnight. Nearly every comedian you spoke to became an Uber driver.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, okay, what do I do? So I went and got a temp job in Herts Police for 6 months.
And you're still there?
And that was 3.5 years ago.
How many hours do you have to do?
I was doing full time, but I've got to say, I'm struggling to say anything negative about them. And I work there now full time permanently. And yeah, I've still got the house in Cyprus, but I couldn't even go there. Northern Cyprus shut their borders, and that's why they only had about 20. I think they had 20 deaths in the whole island. No one was allowed in. No one was allowed out.
Well, never.
So yeah, and that was it. And then slowly, the comedy world started again. It wasn't the same, and yeah, it's getting back to normal now. But people are different. They tend to not book for shows a long way in advance. They leave it to the last minute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we noticed that with and live music. To be honest with you, whilst I'm still doing the band, it was almost the death knell of live music for a lot of bands, because we don't put a great deal of effort into getting new gigs. I mean, it does. It is one of those things. But you've got a number of very famous friends, haven't you? I mean, you've named a few already, but who's up there on the A list? I mean, who would you say, if I picked up the phone now, Paul, I could phone X in the British comedy world?
Oh dear. I mean, some of them are names that most people haven't heard of, but they're my favourites. The one that stands out to me, and there's very few people that I'll pay to go and see. And one of them is a guy called Daniel Kitson, who a lot of people haven't heard of.
No, I haven't heard of him.
No, but I mean, if you go and see a Daniel Kitson show, I guarantee you'll see half a dozen comedians in the audience.
Right.
He doesn't do TV. He doesn't do interviews, but he's just amazing. It just blows my mind. But ones that people heard of, I mean, Mickey Flanagan, he was our resident compere, along with Ross Noble.
Really?
For many years. And I just see them as, especially Mickey, as normal, everyday blokes.
Yeah.
How you see him on stage is how he is in real life. He doesn't forget his roots. If I was to bump into him tomorrow, the first thing he'd say to me is, he'd take the mickey out of the old Bill.
Yeah.
And then he'll ask me how my kids are and how's the running going.
Fantastic.
He's just a normal guy, and what he's achieved from where he started is phenomenal.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
Yeah, I went and saw his show last month, and it's still hilarious.
Oh, he's funny. And you think he's playing to tens of thousands of people, isn't he? I mean, he bangs out the house. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because he was playing down your way, wasn't he? He was...
Yeah, he did a couple of shows. He always comes to Southend.
Yeah.
I mean that out gag that he's doing. Oh. I mean, he was... but he's been doing that gag. That's 15, 20 years old, He did that in Churchill's and at my place 15, 20 years ago.
But that's the Max Miller in him. If you go, Now here's a funny thing. You've got all those, your Larry Grayson, Shut That Door. It stayed with them for their entire life. So Out is just going to be, that'll be a strap line for him forever and ever. Amen. Yeah.
It is funny though, because I don't shout about my comedy stuff when I'm at work in my day job, and I sit there sometimes and people always go on about comedy, and I'm sure if and they throw all these names around, and I'm going, I know, I saw him yesterday, and they wouldn't believe me. And that's somewhat, it's quite funny sometimes, and or I'll get a phone call at work from someone from the comedy world, and someone walked past me the other day, and I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Bobby Davro. I can't remember, but I was on the phone to FaceTime to one of them. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, yes, it was someone from the... someone walked past me on my phone and went, "Is that... What the fuck are you talking?"
Oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. And but like you say, they're all human beings. They all have to get up and use a lure in the middle of the night. And it's... is there anyone you wish you'd have seen, that you never got the opportunity, a comedian?
Yeah, I mean, I've managed to see... who did I see that was on my hit list? Billy Connolly, I got to see him. One of the best nights. And honestly, I just wish you could film more of these random things I've seen. It was a Jewish charity night, and it was Bob Monkhouse, Bruce Forsyth, and Jeremy Beadle.
Wow!
All on stage together, absolutely shit-faced.
Fantastic.
And they were trying to carry Bruce Forsyth off stage, and he just wouldn't go. Honestly, it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And going back to Bob Monkhouse, an absolute genius.
Oh yeah,
just such a funny and nice man. People I wish I had seen. I'm going back a long while now. My brain's gone dead. I've forgotten his goddamn name. Frankie Howard.
Yes.
I missed him by about a week. He was playing at the Palace Theatre in Southend. Oh God, who else? There's a few names.
Tommy Cooper's the one for me. I wish I'd have seen Tommy Cooper live.
Yeah, again, yeah, definitely. But I've been very lucky to see some random people who agents. So you'll get an agent ring you up on 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon and say, I've got so and so in England. He needs some stage time before he goes and does a big show in the O2 or whatever. Can you give him 20 minutes? And I'm like, can I give him 20 minutes? You're gonna have the whole night. But the only problem is your show doesn't finish till 11:30, so I'll miss the last train back to London. Do you mind driving him back to London? And I'm like, so hold on a minute. You want me to drive this American comedian who is an absolute demigod back to London? Do I mind? Yeah, of course. I'll come and pick him up as well if you want. So yeah, I've seen some random people at the club. Yeah,
it's funny. When I was a kid, my parents, Dickie Henderson, who was an old, he was doing something down in Clacton, and my parents got to know him and his missus quite well, and I ended up meeting Arthur Askey of all people. And do you know Arthur Askey's first professional gig was in Colchester?
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I was only a little boy then, but yeah, it was quite bizarre.
Guy's name just escaped me. Look him up afterwards. His name is Patrice ONeil.
Patrice ONeil.
Yeah. I can't remember what car I had. It was really small, but Patrice was about 30 stone.
Wow.
Massive comedian in America. And if I tell an English comedian I had Patrice ONeil in my car, they're like, you had what? So I'd take him back to London. I don't know if at one stage I did have a smart car. I don't think we was in the smart car, but it was, whatever it was, he struggled to get in there.
Comedy
he came
in itself.
to Southend. He did one joke. It was a 20-minute gag about disabled. It was the Olympics, and it was disabled animals doing the Olympics. It was one gag. It was absolutely hilarious. And another one that springs to mind. Do you remember Tom O'Connor?
Oh, I've seen Tom O'Connor, and here's my story about Tom O'Connor. When my dad was on his CID course up in Preston in 1970 whatever, Tom O'Connor came in to do the closing night on the CID course up in Preston. He was a school teacher then.
Yeah. Well, from doing my crazy runs across the world, I did one in America in 2014, and I met this. I ran with a group of English people, and one of them was a young lady whose daughter was the daughter of Tom O'Connor.
Oh wow!
And I'm still friends with her now. She's now in a relationship with one of my best mates who was also in that race. We've become friends ever since, and we do races all around the world now. I got introduced to Tom. I met him for lunch one day, I've never laughed so much in my life. Bearing in mind he's now in his 80s.
I think he's gone, isn't he? Is he part? Has he not passed away?
Unfortunately, passed away last year. But he had Alzheimer's.
Oh right.
But his last ever performance on stage was for me. He came and did my club.
Really?
Yeah, and it was just hilarious. But we went for lunch, and I've never laughed so much in all my life. The stories he was telling me and the people he's met and knows. He was friends with Norman Wisdom. And he was telling me about when I'm not sure if it's Isle of Man. It's one of the islands where Norman Wisdom lived.
Yes,
he lived in a care home.
Right.
And he had this big Rolls Royce. And he had the freedom of whatever island it was. And one of the things he was allowed to do was drive, I don't know, some of their really old laws. But he used to just cause absolute chaos around the island driving his Rolls Royce. Tom O'Connor, lovely man and very, very talented and very funny.
Isn't one of his sons married to a famous athlete?
Yes. Yeah.
I can't remember which one it is, but yeah.
No.
One of our famous athletes is married to.
Yeah. She'll kill me when I tell her I've forgotten. But yeah, you're right.
But it's, these are comedy royalty to us. The problem is in this day and age, and I sound like my dad now. You and I were brought up with your Norman Wisdoms, your Max Bygraves, and then you moved into Steptoe and Son and all the comedy programs.
Yeah.
There are so many channels now on the television that I miss half these things.
Yeah.
I don't get to see the comedy stuff. I love Lee Mack. I think he's absolutely brilliant, the stuff that he does. But you have to really look for some of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, me and the missus, we watch the program, the quiz show that Lee Mack's on now, 100 to 1. Is it 100 to 1?
I don't know.
Yeah, and Lee Mack's the host. We applied to go on that, and we got through to the TV show. It's airing next March.
Oh, right.
And Lee Mack was the host of that. But unfortunately for me, so my missus was actually on it, but because they have 105, 110 contestants, but only 100 actually go on the show.
Right.
And I was one of the bloody 10 that didn't.
Well, don't tell us the outcome. We'll look forward to seeing it.
So I could have given him some right stick, because Lee's done my club a few times.
Brilliant. Now, how often is the club on?
Last Friday of every month, in the Chalkwell Park rooms, which is in Chalkwell Park. I'm hoping you'll come down and see us one day.
I will absolutely come down. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll absolutely come down.
I've tried to give it up a few times, but I did once, and some of my regulars, some of the punters have been coming for 25, 30 years. They basically said, you can't give up. I can't. So we're not allowing it. Carry on going. Okay.
Brilliant.
But it pays for all my races around the world. It's not a cheap hobby. And I've got one in America this year and one in, as I said earlier, in Namibia. So something's got to pay for them.
So, but you're always looking for sponsorship as well, I would assume.
Yeah, always helps. I quite often do the races for charity as well. I support a company that raise money for a thing called Duchenne's.
Yes. Which
is a form of muscular dystrophy.
Yes.
My friend's son has got that, and he's raised millions trying to find a cure because it's an incurable disease. Right. So keeps me off the streets.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put all your social media bits in here for Chalkwell rooms and for your running, etc.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because I get not jealous, but envious. I see people of my age or even younger than me who have joined the police at a yearly age and are now 50, 52, 53, retiring with their big pension pot. And there's me still busting my balls at 59.
Yeah.
But when I speak to policemen, they all say the opposite. Go, oh no, we're jealous of what you've done.
And I make you right. Do you know, I retired at 51, and I've been retired 7 years. 7 years this December. If I knew then what I know now, I don't know that I'd have done the 30 years. It was different because the pension was different, etc., etc. I enjoy working for myself, but I have got that cushion of, I've got the cushion of my pension. But I am envious of you because whilst I do this and I do my TV bits and all the other stuff that I do, I'd love to get up and tell a joke. Yeah. My own joke, not one that... But then nobody would laugh at my own joke. So it's a real... But I am envious of people like you because you've got the foresight and the courage to go and do what you want to do. I didn't have that. I joined at 21. By the time I'd done 15 years, I was 36. I had a couple of kids. I had a huge mortgage. All the detritus that goes with life in general. And I was then stuck for the next 15 years. So, yeah, I do get it. The police isn't the job that you joined or that I joined. That's one thing I will say.
Yeah, I mean, I've done 15 years in total, and I've seen a phenomenal change in those 15 years. So I dread to think how much it's changed for you.
Yeah, and like I say, I sound like my dad sometimes because I just think that it's sometimes it's lions led by donkeys, but they're not all donkeys, by the way. At the top, some are very, very nice and very competent people, but they're hamstrung by governments and everything else that go along with that.
Yeah.
What was the highlight, before we conclude, what was the highlight of your policing service, though?
The highlight? I had a really... I was quite lucky in that, although I started in uniform, pretty quickly I ended up being in the world of detectives and CID and whatever. And I was involved in a project for, 15 months, I think it was, where it was a covert job,
right? Yeah,
in Southend, and I got to work with some great people. I'm sure you'll know some of them, Simon Doverston, and some other interesting characters.
Yeah,
and it was a real eye opener for me. I never realised that what we were doing and things like that even existed. I can't. Well, I don't know if I'll get in trouble for going into too much of it, but it was interesting. It was bloody hard work. We had a robbery squad and a burglary team, and I made some great friends from doing that in Southend. And I don't think that teams like that exist anymore.
Not in the same way.
Yeah, we had some great results, and I've got some amazing stories I could tell. But yeah, no, I loved it. I really did, and I still keep in touch with them now. Ironically, a lot of them have sadly left, and they all had about the same amount of service as me. They've all gone and done other things. I think it's really sad that the police have lost such talented people.
I agree. It's become a transit camp for people now. It's not. Yeah. It just go in, get it on the CV, move on. And the sociability's gone. I mean, Southend had the best bar in the county. Always I played gigs there. It was absolutely superb, but because that's all gone now.
Yeah.
But that's
the old bar upstairs.
Yeah, absolutely. And they had that borough mentality down at Southend, even up until recently. I think a lot of them did. But as I say, there's not the stability within the police service because of the way that politics works. So, Gary, you are opening the Comedy Bunker at the Cobham Hotel. Now, what is that all about, and who have you got as your first act?
Right, so it's a very nice little quaint basement venue in Westcliff near Southend, and it's going to be used for preview shows for acts to try out new material, practice gags. It holds 60 people, and it launches Sunday week, December the 17th. And we've got a chap called Marcus Birdman.
Britain's Got Talent.
Got through to the semi-final. Amazing comedian. A lot of his stuff is around his health. He's had 3 strokes. He's about my age, I think, late 50s, I think.
Wow.
He'll kill me if he's younger than that. He's had 3 strokes over the last few years, and a lot of his material is about that. Very funny man, and he's bringing his best bits from his latest tour to the venue.
Fantastic.
And that's at the Cobham Hotel, Sunday the 17th at 7:00.
Brilliant. Yeah. Be there or be somewhere else. And tickets available?
Yeah, I think there's 10 left.
Superb.
Yeah.
Well, and, I look forward to seeing that grow as well.
Yeah, you can find all about it at thejokercomedyclub.com.
Mate, before we go any further, I've got to ask you this question. You've got anything you'd like to add, alter or correct in relation to the statement that you've made today?
No, I don't think so. I'm going to sign it away.
I would like to wish you all the very best for 2024, mate, and I hope that the club goes from strength to strength and that you get everything that you deserve. But yeah, take care of yourself.
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.